Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on designing a support group for postpartum women. My name is Misty, and you will hear from my colleagues Absera and Brenna a little bit later on. Let's explore a little bit of what postpartum depression actually is first. So, the diagnostic criteria for postpartum depression, or PPD, are the same criteria that are used to diagnose major depression. Clinically, the term postpartum depression is used to describe depression that begins roughly within 12 months of childbirth. However, research is showing that this postpartum depression can actually even begin prepartum or prenatally while the woman is still pregnant. So, of all of the depression symptoms that the DSM 5 lists, 5 or more of the following have to be present for nearly every day for at least a 2-week period: a depressed mood most of the time and on most days, a decreased interest or pleasure in activities, doing the normal things, weight loss or even weight gain, sleep disturbances, psychomotor fluctuations, agitation or retardation, changes in energy levels, feeling overly guilty or worthless most of the time, difficulty concentrating, and recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. So let's look at some of the statistics around postpartum depression in women. Studies have found that approximately 1 in 10 women will experience postpartum depression after giving birth, but there are some studies that suggest it's as many as 1 in 7. So if we're doing the math, in the United States, there's approximately 4 million births each year. That adds up to almost 600,000 cases of postpartum depression. Generally, postpartum depression lasts anywhere between 3 to 6 months, but that really depends on a lot of different factors, including response to treatment, the type of support, how soon a woman seeks treatment. There are a lot of variables there. Approximately 50% of mothers overall will remain undiagnosed. Now, that could be because there's underreporting. Women maybe aren't as aware of what the symptoms of PPD look like. There are also multiple factors there. Less than 15% of women receive treatment for postpartum depression, and part of that has to do with cost and access. The rates of depression are more than double in Black mothers. And because we're finding that anxiety and depression among teen girls has increased in the United States, that indicates that the number of women who will be suffering from PPD in the future also increases. It's interesting to note that maternal mental health impacts the whole family. Studies have found that 50% of men who have partners with PPD will also go on to develop depression themselves. Studies are even finding adoptive parents and those parents within the LGBTQ plus community are impacted by PPD as well. But there is hope. Approximately 80% of women will recover from postpartum depression. So what does this look like? There are a number of presenting problems that are associated with mothers who have postpartum depression. One of the top being that the bond between mother and baby can be impaired, and this is due to a decreased interest in caring for the baby. One of the ways that decreased care can manifest itself is in breastfeeding. Breastfeeding rates go down as women are diagnosed with PPD. Additionally, there is an increased risk of behavioral and mood disorders in children because they aren't able to form that bond. They don't have that. They may feel like their needs aren't being met, which can lead to a whole host of other issues for mother and child in the long run.
Hi everyone, this is Absera Angiso. I'm MSW student here at OSU. I will present some of the topics from our support group for moms who suffer from postpartum depression. Let me start with admission criteria. So moms who have given birth within the last 12 months will be included in the support group. And also mothers who are able to participate in the weekly 90-minute session also will be included. And the other inclusion criteria is mothers who are experiencing symptoms of postpartum depression, which is based on research done on 2019. In this slide, I'll discuss exclusion criteria. Mothers who experience suicidal thoughts will be excluded, which is based on research done Robbins and other researchers on 2023. And the moms who are not committed to attend 70% of group session will be also excluded. And mothers who have severe psychiatric conditions, such as being diagnosed by psychosis, bipolar disorder, which requires, immediate psychiatric intervention, they will be also excluded. And the moms who use substance and who are not in remission, and if they are actively using substance, they are also excluded, which is based on research done on 2013. And mothers who have a language barrier and so if they don't speak English, and in addition to that, if there is no interpretation service available, it can be like Google interpretation or a person to, interpreter might not be available, and in that case, we will exclude them from the group. And the other thing is concurrent therapy conflict. That means like if the mother is enrolled in another structured psychotherapy, which is specifically for focusing postpartum depression moms, they'll be excluded because there might be conflict of idea, and also it's very difficult to evaluate, the outcome of the group sessions. So the following methodology will be used to support the group. The first one is a trauma-informed approach, and the other one is strengths-based approach, and by providing psychoeducational materials. And the other methodology is cognitive behavioral therapy informed discussion and peer support, as well as by providing mindfulness practice in the beginning of the session to reduce the symptom of postpartum depression, and also increase the overall well-being of the moms. The following engagement strategies will be used for individuals. The first one is building rapport by using brief intake meeting, which can take from 15 to 20 minutes, and by explaining about confidentiality and privacy, and as well as exploring the mother's level of comfort. And the other strategy is based on strengths-based approach, which is based on research, which is done on 2013, focusing on mother's strengths and resilience, helps the mother to engage more in the group. So we'll be using strengths-based approach. And the other strategy for engagement is trauma-informed approach, which is by making sure the space, which might be online or can be virtual or physical space, is calm, and also by providing non-judgmental service which is sensitive to the past trauma of the mom. And the other is by using motivational interview technique, by providing questions which are open-ended to explore the readiness and to set the goal with the mom. So we'll be using motivational interview techniques too. The following group engagement strategies will be used. The first one is collaborating with OB/GYN office, with clinics and pediatricians, and as well as community health care workers to share culturally sensitive flyers, as well as also social media posts about the moms group. And the other group engagement strategy is normalizing participation by providing contents related to postpartum depression in psychoeducational materials, and that can explain postpartum depression is common and also it's treatable condition to reduce shame as well as stigma related to postpartum depression moms. And the other engagement strategy for the group is by being flexible in the option, such as by providing virtual as well as in-person sessions, due to some moms might have issue with transportation, childcare, as well as might not be comfortable culturally to participate in person with a group. So the following assessment strategies will be used for individuals as well as for the group. To start with the individual assessment strategies, EPDS, which is a postnatal depression scale, will be administered pre as well as post group sessions to assess the symptom of the individuals and its severity, which is actually based on research done with Cox and other researchers on 1987. And by weekly tracking the mood, by having participants to complete a brief mood and coping log to monitor their mood. And the other one is by setting a goal and identifying one or two personalized individuals' goals. The next one is a group assessment strategy. Group will be assessed by attendance and participation logs, and a group satisfaction survey, which will be anonymous survey post session, which usually at the final session to assess group satisfaction or the outcome of the session. And symptom tracking is also one of the strategy for the group assessment, comparing the symptom of the group from the beginning of the group session as well as post EPDS score will be assessed collectively to evaluate the impact of the group sessions on the symptom of the group. And lastly, the process evaluation, which is also conducting a brief closing reflection during the final session to discuss with a member of the groups and to assess if they are ready for the termination process. In this slide, I will discuss about cultural consideration. In the group session, we will be including culturally sensitive materials, and by acknowledging diversity of some moms across different racial, ethnic, as well as cultural identities. And by making sure language interpreter is accessible, and by addressing any systematic barriers that may affect engagement of the mom, which might include transportation issues, childcare, or stigma and shame related to seeking mental health services, and by fostering an inclusive environment which is respectful of each participant's background, and by addressing any racism or any discrimination and inequality which might impact the mother's mental health and overall well-being.
So for the considerations, this would include location, time frame, and frequency size. The sessions are ideally held in a community-based, trauma-informed space that allows the participants to feel warm and welcomed because it is accessible to them. And this encourages them to feel as though it's an environment that's safe for them and they can open up during these sessions. As for the time frame and frequency, the sessions are held in a 10-week program, and this is very intentional because it allows the women to really reflect on what they have learned and gradually practice these new skills and techniques without feeling too rushed. And the sessions themselves typically are about 90 minutes, but it depends on the group's specific needs and the things that are tailored to them. And the preferred group size is about 10 to 12. Having a smaller group creates a sense of intimacy, but having a group of 10 to 12 participants, it's still big enough that unique experiences are still being put to the table, and it's still enough of a variety of people that are included in the sessions. So it's a pretty good amount. So for the 6 key principles of a trauma-informed approach, this includes safety, trustworthiness, and transparency, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, empowerment, voice and choice, culture and history, and gender issues. So the sessions are held in a trauma-informed environment where the group settings are very structured and the mothers know what to expect during each session. So this helps create that sense of both physical and emotional safety that is very important in encouraging the women to open up and feel safe in their environment. And for trustworthiness and transparency, kind of a similar thing. The women are well aware of what's going to happen during each session, very much in advance. So the program is laid out to them very clearly, so there's no confusion. And whatever questions they may have about the program are answered to the full truth. So this helps build that trust from the start. Peer support. The sessions are centered around group-based support. So encouraging mothers to share their lived experiences and have an opportunity to validate one another. And this helps them to build on those connections within the sessions and even form long-lasting connections outside of the program as well. And for collaboration, the mothers are encouraged to actively participate in the discussions, and they're kind of treated as an expert in their own lives and are really given a space to kind of take charge of their own healing. And for empowerment, voice, and choice, even though the mothers are encouraged to participate in the group sessions, they can choose their level of engagement. Something's out of their comfort zone, they're able to take that time to warm up to it. And the mothers are also encouraged to reflect on their strengths as caregivers, and these sessions are encouraged to promote confidence within themselves. For culture and history and gender issues, the sessions are developed with diverse and undeserved populations, and the facilitators are trained very well to respond with cultural humility and be aware of maybe their own barriers they may have with some of the participants, so they can really be mindful of that and go into it with an open mind as well. So for safety precautions that would be put in place, this would include ensuring the environment promotes a sense of calmness and de-escalation for clients and staff. So really focusing on that physical safety is very important, and organizational operations and decisions are conducted with transparency to build and maintain trust with the clients. So just ensuring that there's no disconnect between the facilitators and the participants is very important, because that disconnect can lead to the participants feeling unsafe in their environment and feeling like it's not a welcoming place for them to share their feelings and their experiences. So it's very important that we create an environment that's very open and very trustworthy for them. And the last one would be the organization actively moves past cultural stereotypes and biases. So this is just ensuring that our facilitators don't hold on to any barriers that they may have with any of the participants, and there's a judgment-free zone. It's a very open place for them to share their experiences without fear of judgment, consequences, or anything along those lines. So for some of the materials and equipment needed, this would include printed handouts that include coping strategies and information on the symptoms. It's just good for them to have something to take home with them and look at outside of sessions to help further their understanding of the program. And the seating is arranged in a circle to encourage group discussion. So this allows for the participants to kind of face each other and really feel that connection and vulnerability between one another. In a private, safe space for participants to share their thoughts, so making sure that they're in a room where there's not a bunch of distractions, extra people moving around. It is really just centered around them, and it's their space to speak and open up. And then another material that would be needed would be journals and pens for reflection outside of sessions. So providing this to them really encourages them to use it, and it promotes that reflection outside of sessions. So it helps them build on their skills and their understanding of their own needs, even when sessions are not being currently held in person, which is very important to their growth in the program.
So in first session, sign and symptom of postpartum depression will be discussed to create awareness and also to help the moms track their symptoms, as well as to understand if the group session is effective or not symptom-wise. So in the first session, sign and symptom of postpartum depression will be discussed with moms. In first session, we will discuss the sign and symptom of postpartum depression with the moms, with the goal of participants or those moms will gain understanding of sign and symptom of postpartum depression, as well as identify the severe sign of postpartum depression and what interventions might be needed in that case. And the icebreaker activities include name and baby story introduction. Each participant will share their baby name and recount one moment, one joyful moment since the baby birth. And emotional thermometer check-ins. Participants indicate their emotions, current emotions, to start building comfort in discussing their feelings with the group. The following intervention technique will be utilized. A brief psychoeducational presentation on postpartum depression sign and symptom, which is followed by facilitated discussion where the moms identify which symptoms they have experienced. And the other intervention technique is participant will, which is moms who experience postpartum depression within 12 months receive a postpartum depression symptom handout, and they're going to circle what symptoms they have experienced. And these intervention techniques are based on a research done, which is done on 2023 by Robbins and other researchers. So for closing, activities include gratitude circle will be provided. That means like each participant will share one thing they are grateful for about themselves, or maybe about their babies from previous week. And homework also included. Participants will journal one feeling they have experienced each day during the weeks to build awareness and prepare for discussing emotions in next sessions.
So the middle session is centered around growing a support network. So this means helping the participants really strengthen and grow their personal relationships, even expand that social network. So some of the research that we've done has shown that emotional isolation plays a really, really big role in postpartum depression, and helping women, especially women from marginalized communities, be able to identify positive relationships in their lives where they can, go to these people and rely on them for support and be able to talk through things with others would be really helpful for them in their postpartum journey. So the goal of the sessions would be to help the participants strengthen their support system and reduce the risk of isolation and improve their overall well-being throughout their postpartum journey. So to start the session, we would include icebreakers and activities that the participants can do to help them kind of warm up and feel more comfortable talking about their experiences. So the first one would be mapping, and this would take about 10-15 minutes, but it would consist of the participants drawing themselves in the center of a piece of paper and creating lines to personal relationships in their lives, and the lines would indicate how strong or weak that connection is. So if they drew a dotted line, that would mean that the connection is weak, and a straight line would mean that they feel the connection is strong. And this would essentially help the participants visualize the personal relationships that they have in their lives, and would even help them to identify the strengths that they have and maybe consider the weak ones that they have as well, and think about whether or not they would feel comfortable with taking the steps to deepen that connection. It can help them just, get a starting point for where that they're at, and maybe even help them create a goal for themselves and where they want to be by the end of the sessions, So, and the participants can take turns sharing their insights if they would like, and it can help open up a really meaningful conversation for the women. Another icebreaker activity that they could do would be a who would you call activity. This would take also about 10 minutes or so. And this would consist of just simply asking the participants who they would choose to call at 3 a.m. if they were in an emergency situation. So this helps them really think about how accessible that person would be and the steps that they could take to make themselves feel like it's easier to reach this person, and really think about how they would approach the situation. And it can also help them create a meaningful discussion with each other if they choose to share their feelings about the activity as well. So for this part of the session, we would introduce a cognitive behavioral technique, which is called thought reframing. This essentially helps the participants to shift or kind of reshape those thoughts that they're having that may prevent them from reaching out for help due to guilt or shame. An example of this would include the facilitator presenting a common thought, such as, I'm a bad mom because I can't do this all on my own, which is a very common thought, especially for single mothers. And even if they have a spouse, it's very easy for people to feel overwhelmed and very isolated. And the facilitator can give the participants about 10 minutes just for a reflection time for them to share their experiences with this thought and what it truly means to them. And it kind of helps to open up a safe space for them to share those thoughts that they may have been holding within themselves due to guilt or shame about that. And then the facilitator would take an opportunity to help these women reframe those thinking patterns and say, I am a good mom because I am not afraid to ask for help when it is needed. And, it kind of helps shift that as, even though at this moment I am overwhelmed and I feel as though I can't do this all on my own, asking for help does not make me weak. It makes me a good mom because I'm putting, my kids first. So just really helping them push aside, guilt and shame and enter in positive thinking patterns can really help them begin to heal from those negative thoughts. So a way to wrap up the session would be a closing activity that involves reflection. And this would look like asking the participants to reflect on what support would look like for them, because, support looks very different, from person to person. People have different needs, people have different limits, people are very, very unique and hold different experiences, and they need help in certain ways. So it would really be helpful for them to think about themselves as an individual and what they specifically need for them and their lives. And, giving each participant an opportunity to share their thoughts for a meaningful discussion as well, so it can create a safe space for women to share what they need without feeling like they're asking for too much, or allow them to really expand. Maybe even, if someone in the group shares something that they feel like could be helpful for them in their own lives, women can also take that in and be like, that's a really good idea, and start to incorporate that in their own journey as well. So it's just a good way for women to connect and think about themselves first. A good way to help the participants outside of the actual sessions is to give them a homework assignment. So this could look like a challenge where the participants reach out to someone in the upcoming week to ask for a favor involving a specific task. And this can look however they wish it to look. It is completely up to them. It's their personal life and they know their own limits. And so they can choose what task it is and who they ask. But then we will provide them with journals where it gives them a safe space for them to write down their thoughts and really reflect on their feelings. So this would include, how it felt to ask that person for help and how that went, and if they feel like it was a comfortable connection, and if they think that that connection could grow, or even if this is a new person they decided to ask, if they think that this is a potentially new strong connection where they can rely on this person later on. So it gives them a chance to either deepen an old connection or strengthen a new one, which is very, very important in this journey.
So welcome to our final session of our postpartum depression support group for women. On our final session, we will be going over ways to take care of yourself. Self-care is a hot topic today and in our culture and in society, and it's especially important among women who have recently given birth and may be experiencing these symptoms of PPD. So the goal of our final session is to increase awareness of the importance of self-care. We want to help participants identify the self-care actions that would work for them and their lives. Every woman is different, every individual is different, and their opportunities for self-care and the things that they enjoy doing are going to be different. And we want to empower them to make caring for themselves a priority. Even little things can count and matter. For our icebreaker during this session, we'll ask the group the following question. If you had 1 hour all to yourself, what would you do with it? During this final session for our support group, our intervention technique will be self-care mapping. So there are a number of domains that participants can examine to assess their personal levels of self-care. They can look at their physical, their mental, emotional, and spiritual domains. They can also include their professional domains or even evaluate some of their relationships. We want to help them look at what activities look like within each of these domains. And if some domains are empty or have fewer, are those things that need more focus. Our closing activity will include a self-compassion mindfulness. During this, we'll facilitate a guided meditation exercise that specifically focuses on awareness and self-compassion. As Absera mentioned previously, there are 2 specific evaluation methods we will use to measure the success of our group. First, our group will be assessed using a group satisfaction survey. This will be brief and anonymous and will be administered at the end of the group. We'll be able to kind of gauge what participants thought went well and what they didn't, and kind of gauge the success of the group overall. The second evaluation method will be the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. So this was something that participants took at the very beginning during the first session, and it's something that they will take again at the final session, and we'll be able to compare the scores for each individual from where they assess themselves in the first session and compared to where they assess themselves during the final session. And hopefully we see improvement, which will lend to the success of our program. On behalf of my group members, we would like to thank you for viewing our presentation today, and we hope that you enjoyed it. Please see the following 3 slides for our references.